tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The Chinese-Canadian community responds to allegations of foreign interference at Vancouver City Hall.
As long as you're Chinese, then somehow you're not, loyal to Canada and Canadian values, and that concerns me the most.
The Prime Minister's response and the Premier's demand. Also, a full-fledged bus strike looms in the Eastern Fraser Valley. What you need to know to prepare. And packed bars and pints aplenty.
I suppose when you're being away from Ireland, you're away from home, it's an opportunity to connect with your heritage.
BC bars and restaurants ring in another St. Patrick's Day.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Anita is away tonight. Members of BC's Chinese community are speaking out tonight, saying they worry recent reports of alleged interference in the province's municipal elections could spark distrust for their communities. Yesterday, we told you that the Globe and Mail published a report that China's consulate in Vancouver meddled in the polls by using diaspora community groups and grooming candidates. Yasmin Gandam reports it's catching the eye of Ottawa and Victoria.
Vancouver's municipal elections now take an interest of the entire country.
When little bits and pieces of uncorroborated, unverified information get put out and people instantly react.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau addressing allegations against Sim in Ontario, defending the results of the Vancouver election.
But if people jump to conclusions and start throwing around allegations, are not only harmful to an individual, it's also harming the very institutions.
The Globe and Mail has reported it viewed a January 2022 Canadian Security Intelligence Service report, which found the former Chinese consulate wanted to elect pro-Beijing politicians to City Council last October. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim won that election, a rematch between him and incumbent Kennedy Stewart by nearly 37,000 votes. He has denied any interference.
We won. We got the most votes in the history of Vancouver.
Today, BC's Premier echoed the Prime Minister, saying he's asked for a full briefing by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, but he hasn't received it yet. In a statement to Radio Canada, a CISA spokesperson said that this threat comes not from the Chinese population, but from the Chinese Communist Party, which is deploying a strategy aimed at geopolitical gains on economic, technological, political, and military fronts.
I don't want to see actually that legitimate request actually is evolving or has evolved to xenophobia.
This Chinese immigrant worries these allegations of interference will generate a lack of trust against the Chinese community.
Do we still carry this suspicion that as long as you're Chinese, then somehow you're not, loyal to Canada and Canadian values? And that concerns me the most.
Yan says Sim's win was significant, allowing the Chinese community to see representation in civic politics. And that sufficient proof is necessary to show that Sim's win wasn't the result of a democratic election. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
A controversial custody case has been settled in Hazelton in northern BC. A judge granted permanent custody to the family of a Giksan child whose fate has been up in the air for years. It's a complicated case that delves into the intricacies of not only family law, but also Indigenous identity. To help break it down, we're joined by Angela Starrett. Angela, to start, take us through the basics of this case.
So the lawyers for the case, Kirsten Barnes, tells me the family has been fighting for the child to be returned to her Giksan territory for 8 years. Now, the child was put into care when her Giksan mom was struggling. But in August 2021, the Ministry of Children and Family Development placed the child with her non-Giksan paternal family in Ontario. Now, in desperation, the family pleaded for a visit to Giksan territory, which was granted. And during the visit, the family found out that the girl had a fractured collarbone and asked the ministry to investigate. it refused and scheduled the girl's flight back to Ontario, so the community blocked a social worker from taking the child. Here's the Gitxsan community's lawyer, Kirsten Barnes.
That gave me hope. And I felt like that was a clear indication of just how important our children are to us. And that was a clear statement to the government that the Gitxsan Nation will decide what is best for our children.
And clearly this case was a big deal to the families of this child, but one of the more interesting aspects is how Métis identity was used in court. So how did that come into play during the trial?
Right. So after many court dates and months later, the ministry made an application for the child to stay in her Gitxsan territory. But in May of 2022, the Métis Commission for Children and Families of BC blocked the ministry's application, arguing the child's auntie must agree to a Métis cultural safety agreement because the paternal family was Métis. Now that's something the auntie and the lawyer both disputed. Here's Kirsten Barnes again.
When we were first told that the child was Métis, we required evidence to support that finding because the auntie was concerned. She didn't want to impose a culture on the child that was not her own, because we've seen the harms that have been caused when that occurs.
Now in court, the judge said the cousin's father is a registered member of a Métis tribe called the Eastern Woodland Métis Nation of Nova Scotia. But that Métis group is not recognized by Métis groups, including the Métis Nation of BC or even the federal government. In a statement to CBC, the MNBC said that its registry confirmed that the status First Nation child did not meet the accepted definition of being Métis on any point and held that the Métis Commission was therefore overstepping the scope of jurisdiction in what was at heart a First Nations custody case and matter. In court, the paternal family was asked to prove their Métis heritage, but in an interesting move, they withdrew the application for custody. And then, of course, in this latest court appearance, a new judge ordered the girl to be placed in the care of her Gitxsan auntie and uncle in their Gitxsan territory. And of course, this is the first time the child has had a permanent home. Michelle?
All right, our Angela Starrett reporting tonight. Thank you, Angela. BC's police watchdog agency is investigating after a man was shot and killed by Prince George RCMP yesterday. It happened on Highway 97 south of Prince George just before 5 o'clock. Police responded to a man who police say appeared to be experiencing a mental health crisis. After officers arrived, there was an interaction that ended with an officer firing his gun. The man was hit and he later died. No one else was injured in the incident. The Independent Investigations Office is now looking into what led to his death. The IIO would like to speak to anyone with information or anyone with dash cam or video footage. In Vancouver, police arrested a 30-year-old man in connection with a homicide in Chinatown last month. Surrey's Jal Ruth Queth is charged with second-degree murder in the death of Nikolai Sugak. Sugak was attacked near West Pender and Corral Street shortly after midnight on February 6th and later died of his injuries. The Vancouver Police Department says it has found no evidence the victim and Queth knew each other. Queth remains in custody and the allegations have not yet been proven. Well, transit drivers in the Eastern Fraser Valley are set to walk off the job on Monday. The union has been ramping up job action in recent months, from not collecting fares to short stints of workers off the job. It says more than 200 workers are ready to start a full-scale strike, leaving some students worried about next week's commute.
On the days that they're just canceled, I find I can't get to school and I can't get to work if I have work that day. I have to do my school online from home and hope that it works out that way and try and get a ride to work.
It would require me to be here much earlier than expected.
As I have to Uber to get like my groceries and stuff, it's expensive. And
how much does it cost for an Uber?
It's like 10 bucks.
All transit services in the Eastern Fraser Valley will stop except Handy Dart, which will continue to operate for essential services. The union tells CBC it remains open to return to the bargaining table, but does not expect a resolution by Monday. Well, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre spoke in Vancouver today, outlining how a Conservative-led federal government would tackle affordable housing.
Poilievre government will link the number of infrastructure dollars a city gets to the number of houses it allows to be completed. Governments that block construction will be fined with clawbacks to their federal infrastructure money. Those that get out of the way, speed up building permits and free up land to build more, will get bonuses.
Pierre Poilievre also said he would convert federal buildings into affordable housing units. Advocates in BC are pushing for change on caste-based discrimination. The social hierarchy system has been largely practiced in India. Benit Brach spoke to one advocate calling for action after landmark decisions in Seattle and Toronto.
The caste system. Have you heard of it? Basically, it's like a social hierarchy in India, passed on through families. It can define what jobs people do, who they marry, and can cause discrimination among a range of faiths. Recently, 2 landmark decisions in Seattle and Toronto are recognizing caste oppression, and some are calling for the same in BC.
My family has experienced caste discrimination right up to today. I have nieces and nephews, future generations, who face it in school, who have had marriages and relationships broken up because of caste discrimination. So it's here, and I think because we don't talk about it, because we don't have the language, and we haven't created the safe spaces to also explore this, that's of concern.
The caste system is largely a South Asian practice. At the top are Brahmins or priests. Among those at the bottom are the Dalits, who were forced into jobs like sewer cleaning. Now, the caste system was abolished in the late 1940s, but people say it's still causing problems, such as stigma over last names, which can indicate your caste, and employees being denied higher wages. People in Seattle will soon be able to sue their employer for caste discrimination. People like Anita Lal hope that the province and school boards create more awareness about caste oppression.
Tonight, dozens of international students in Canada are facing deportation. School admissions letters they used to enter the country were deemed to be fake. But as Thomas Daigle explains, the students say they were victims of fraud and want to stay.
When Ravjit Singh landed in Canada, he intended to spend his life here. Now his future is in limbo, and he says he knows who to blame.
I got into contact with a consultant back in India, and then he applied for our visa application. Whatever was on our part, we did everything right.
Singh says he paid that immigration consultant more than $11,000 and received what turned out to be a fake acceptance letter to college. Canadian immigration officials eventually caught on and issued this exclusion order telling him to leave the country. Singh is fighting to stay but isn't allowed to work in the meantime.
I'm not able to do anything, first of all. Nothing is added to my resume. My career is hampering.
Hundreds of Indian students studying in Canada are now reportedly facing deportation.
The fiasco is making headlines in India, and immigration officials here won't say how many are being told to leave. Other students sent CBC News similar fraudulent letters from separate colleges, also obtained through overseas immigration consultants.
Because of the crookedness or fraud of another person, they are innocent victims. Students trusted the wrong guy.
Some say Canadian border agents bear responsibility too and should have spotted the fake documents in the first place. We asked the immigration minister.
How did Canada Border Services Agency not catch this and prevent these students from going through this nightmare?
I've asked our team at IRCC to look into it to identify the facts underlying the situation. This is extremely serious.
If the students are forced to leave Canada, some have been told they won't be allowed back in for 5 years. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Health Canada says it has received an increasing number of illegal drug samples containing xylazine. It's a veterinary sedative not approved for human use. The animal tranquilizer began emerging in 2019, mixed with opioids like fentanyl. And across the country, the number of xylazine identifications jumped from 205 in 2019 to over 2,000 in 2022. Over 20% of those samples were in BC. It's normally prescribed for dogs, cats, horses, and cattle. Xylazine can act as a depressant to the central nervous and respiratory systems. Overdose reversal drugs like naloxone are less effective on those who have consumed the tranquilizer. That's according to Health Canada. That increases the risk of a fatal overdose. Well, it looks like something out of a horror movie. You're riding the Skytrain, traveling along, when out of the window you spot a giant spider. That's right, a new art installation in all its 8-legged glory has spun its web and made itself a home under Commercial Street in Vancouver along the Millennium Skytrain line. Artist Junko first posted the art on his Instagram with a video of its construction. Junko told CBC News the installation is created completely out of waste materials collected from the streets of Vancouver, adding that there's already plenty of litter lining the train tracks. And this is just a carefully arranged pile of it. Ticketmaster is bowing to pressure from rock band The Cure, who are set to perform in Vancouver in June. The company has taken the unusual step of lowering prices and issuing some refunds after frontman Robert Smith lashed out online. As Justin Hayward explains, that has many wondering whether this signals a bigger change for the company.
In a decades-long musical career, The Cure has built a devoted following. In his 2019 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame acceptance speech, lead singer Robert Smith made it clear.
Everyone that's bought a record or listened to the music, been to a show.
The fans are the focus.
Yes. Thanks. We love you too. That's the point.
So, Smith made a promise. Verified fans could get tickets for as little as $20 for this year's tour. He worked with the world's largest ticket seller, Ticketmaster, to make it happen. But when the tour hit the U.S., disappointed fans flooded Twitter. Sure, the tickets were $20, but Ticketmaster's fees more than doubled the price. In a tweet, Smith said it sickened him. This broadcaster and music writer says he wasn't surprised.
When I first heard about this, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be another PR nightmare for Ticketmaster, but people are just going to suck it up.
Cure fans aren't the first to lock horns with Ticketmaster. Some Bruce Springsteen fans were faced with prices for his tour that surged above $5,000. A rush for tickets left Taylor Swift fans locked out of her tour. It led to a hearing in the U.S. Senate and a mea culpa from Ticketmaster's parent company just this January.
We need to do better, and we will do better.
Now, under pressure from Smith, Ticketmaster has agreed to refund up to $10 to verified fans.
Hopefully, this is the sort of sea change moment for this battle against Ticketmaster.
This culture writer hopes this is the beginning of a trend.
I hope this is a precedent that we set, right? Where you see that that power exists in the artists. Like this is proof that it can be done.
But others point out it won't be easy.
It requires competitive forces to make that happen, and that is hard to accomplish.
Especially if fans are still willing to pay. Justin Hayward, CBC News, Montreal.
And Radio-Canada's Jules Desjardins joins us now. Jules, pretty beautiful day for people out celebrating St. Patrick's Day. What is the weekend looking like?
It looks very good, especially for tomorrow. It will change on Sunday, but it was quite a nice day today. We had temperatures close to average, seasonal for most of the Southwest. We still have a lot of moisture coming from the west. We're going to repeat the same thing as yesterday. The cloud will build in tonight. It will stay that way until tomorrow morning. After that, it will clear away again with warmer temperature. Sun and warmer temperature, that's what we want to hear for the last weekend before spring. We're still protected by a ridge of high pressure for the north of the province. The temperature today were pretty close to the average temperature almost everywhere in the province. The wind was not very fast, but we have still temperatures that are starting to make us smile a little bit more with 15 degrees today with Pitt Meadows. Tomorrow we'll have more warmth. It will be present, especially for the southwest. The wind will be low and the temperatures high almost everywhere. And good news for tomorrow. I'll give you more details in a few minutes.
Thanks, Jules. Well, in case the green didn't give it away, it is St. Patrick's Day, a day for celebration, good company, and even some green beer. So we visited the Shamrock Bar in Vancouver to see how people are celebrating. Take a look.
Down among the pigs, played some hardy rigs, danced some hardy jigs, the water round the
It's a great day just to be Irish in general. Everybody celebrates our culture, enjoys the crack, and just has a few beverages.
What's the most popular beverage here today?
What do you think? Water? Guinness? Yeah.
I suppose when you're being away from Ireland, you're away from home, it's an opportunity to connect with your heritage and celebrate the day with friends and family and just get outside and enjoy the day. It's a home away from home from me, get to meet my own friends, but it's Irish people have this community thing, it doesn't matter who you meet, especially on a day like today. You say cheers, you can put arms around, sing the same song, and you feel together.
Hey, welcome in, folks. Happy Paddy's Day. That's a crack. Here we go.
Nanaimo's public safety crisis continues after a man with a weapon was arrested and charged. More on this after the break. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. St. Patrick's Day celebration started early in St. John's, but there's something that happens in other parts of the world on this day that doesn't happen there. Mark Quinn hit the streets to ask whether the city should have a Paddy's Day parade.
It's not even lunch yet. Have you guys had a drink yet?
No.
Are you telling the truth?
No. Just lying to you.
People in this province take celebrating St. Patrick's Day very seriously. Just ask them, where is the best place in North America to mark the holiday?
St. John's, Newfoundland, George Street, right here.
But one thing is missing. New York City has the world's largest and oldest St. Patrick's Day parade. And Montreal's been holding one since 1824. So should St. John's have one too? These people say yes.
Because it's a St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. What kind of things do you think should be in the parade?
Snake floats.
Yeah, certainly. I think people would show up.
I don't see why not. I mean, it's good for the tourists. I don't know how the locals would like it, but I mean, it could be pretty fun.
Again, back home in the Caribbean, we have a carnival, and it brings in a lot of tourism, and it can boost the economy and generate a lot of jobs for people in multiple ways and help the community a lot. So I think they should have a parade, and everybody will be working and everybody will be happy and paid, man. That's it.
But not everyone agrees. Some say it's unnecessary.
I absolutely do not think we should have a parade. We parade on George Street for about 12 hours, so I think that's enough.
Every day is a parade down on George Street, whether it be Thursday night or, George Street Festival, there's always people down here.
And for some, it's a question of priorities.
Well, then we can't sit in the bar. We're kind of busy on St. Paddy's Day, actually. We're busy.
What are you busy? What are you at?
We're here.
So it sounds like you voted to stay inside on St. Patrick's Day.
Well, we're dancing at 7 a.m.
Yes.
Having a beer at 7 a.m.
It's the only place to be. St. John's, Newfoundland. It's the only place to be for St. Paddy's Day.
Mark Quinn, CBC News, George Street.
A man has been arrested in Nanaimo for allegedly threatening people with a toy bow and arrow that had a syringe with a needle attached to the tip. The RCMP says the 32-year-old man faces a number of charges, including assaulting a police officer and possession of a weapon dangerous to the public. Nanaimo mayor says the city is facing a public safety crisis, adding it is beyond his capacity to control or repair. Yesterday, more than 100 people joined a rally to express their frustration with escalating crime in the city.
We've tried to invest in policing, adding 19 more police officers, which I know doesn't sound like a lot. And it isn't, because when you compare our police here in Nanaimo, which have about, I think, 171 right now, to Vancouver, or to Victoria, same size, actually we're bigger, they have 70 more officers. But this is not a policing problem.
Councillor Armstrong says it's an issue of failing to invest in proper mental health and addiction support. The rally comes after the owner of a local mechanic shop was shot in the stomach while trying to retrieve stolen property from a homeless encampment. The man was one of 6 people who went into the encampment to recover stolen tools. Members of the business community called on political leaders to make a change. For more, we are joined by Siobhan Johnson, founder and executive director of the Rise Bridge project in Nanaimo, which works directly with people living in the camps. Siobhan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
So, Siobhan, what are you hearing from camp residents about the fact that a group actually entered the encampment to retrieve what they say are stolen goods?
For sure. I mean, just to be clear, we're not talking about a large encampment here. We have several encampments around the community, but I think it's important to know that it isn't a large encampment, as to which Nanaimo first put its name on the map for a homeless encampment quite a few years ago. There's been a lot of displacement measures happening with enforcement in community over the last 2 to 3 years. So many of the encampments are often split up or bothered every few days around cities. So the encampment we're talking about isn't as large as perhaps some people might assume, but it was a place that quite a few individuals who are unhoused in our community was finding their own shelter and safety there. So in dealing with many of the individuals who lived in that encampment or had lived around the area, of course, in community, it's quite concerning. It wasn't just safety concerns, of course, of the individual whom, unfortunately, violence was inflicted upon when he did enter the encampment. But many of the clients and the unhoused individuals that we serve have seen a lot of violence against themselves over the last few weeks, and particularly over the last few days. So it is certainly a safety concern in community right now.
Okay, and good to have that context about the actual size of the camps that we're dealing with. Yesterday, we did see quite a large rally in Nanaimo, people voicing their concern that the situation is getting worse. Just how hard is it for you to help people living in the camps and for your team to provide services?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw quite an influx of unhoused community members after there was a large encampment that took place in the downtown Nanaimo core quite a few years ago. And of course, over COVID, it didn't do anybody well. And the number of unhoused has continued to escalate in community. And the amount of services that we currently have in community to support the unhoused, including housing and low barrier programming, is quite minimal as well. So.
Okay, and the mayor has said the city is facing a public safety crisis, even saying it's beyond his control to fix. So what do you think should be done to calm things down and also to improve the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, the idea that this collective even was rallying yesterday and have rallied quite a few times over the past few months is perplexing to me. Many of my team of directors, we were part of, let's say, the Black Lives Matter rally and anti-racism rallies that we've done in community over the past few years on many accounts, and speaking out about, even against the violence that unhoused members were facing. And we never saw any of these same individuals, take up that same energy when it was against BIPOC individuals in community or other marginalized community members. And of course, the safety concern, there has been individuals who've been harmed. More often than not, all of these cases are involving unhoused members to unhoused members and not to housed members of community, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, the mayor has spoken many times in community over the past few years while he sat in his mayoral seat. He did come from a provincial space. From a social advocate point, we look at what was done while he was in office and serving in a provincial space. And we're hopeful that, of course, more will be done at all levels, because this isn't just a provincial problem, this isn't just a federal problem, but all three, municipal, provincial, and federal leaders need to take action and come up with some tangible solutions to offer community.
All right, Siobhan Johnson, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Edmonton police say a teenager was the one who pulled the trigger yesterday, leaving 2 officers and himself dead. More on the emotional moments before the shooting took place next.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
Top of the morning. Yeah.
Top of the morning to you.
It started as a holiday to remember the saints who brought Christianity to Ireland. It's blossomed into a celebration of the Irish culture.
What are you serving today?
Traditional Irish stout, Guinness.
No green beer?
No. Real Irish people don't drink green beer.
What are you out here to celebrate?
Well, St. Patrick's Day, of course. He drove all the snakes out of Ireland and brought Christianity.
We all came to Canada. And how
they did. We all came to Canada. Yeah, that's where the money is.
And for the Irish, the blarney is as much a part of the culture as the beer.
Oh, he's down there, all right. He's in there, you see. Oh, yeah. Every St. Patrick's Day, he likes to come out, right? And he likes to have a sup of Guinness, right? He likes the Guinness.
That's my friend Patrick.
Is he a leprechaun?
That's a leprechaun.
Every year he just comes over for the weekend from Dublin.
Oh, really?
He just came in this morning, so he's very tired. He's just very tired. Look at him.
Hey, wake up!
Paddy,
I've
say
been
hello.
drinking all morning.
Nah, he's been tired. He's tired. He'll be dancing later, a little later.
But now, are leprechauns real?
Of course they're real. The only people that don't believe they're real are the people in North America. But any Saturday evening about 11 o'clock in Ireland, you can surely see a leprechaun.
Have you seen them before?
Absolutely, especially after a few pints of this.
Why are you wearing this button? Why should people be warned about you?
Warned about me because, I got a twinkle in my eye.
Just over from Ireland, having a good time celebrating St. Pat's Day. Enjoying myself, great city, Vancouver. Really enjoyed it here. And the best of luck to all the Irish people here in Vancouver. Thank you.
A grieving community is gathering tonight in Edmonton to honor the lives of 2 police officers shot and killed in the line of duty. Constables Travis Jordan and Brett Ryan responded to a domestic call at an apartment complex early yesterday morning. Before they could get inside, they were ambushed, shot by a boy just 16 years old. We now have a clearer picture of what exactly happened in the moments before and after the officers were killed. Julia Wong brings us the new details tonight.
The feeling at this Edmonton apartment complex is somber, the day after the officers were shot and killed there.
Before I even got back into my unit, I heard the shooting.
Philip Dunn lives in the building. He was the one who let the officers in. Police say the shooter's mother greeted the officers outside after calling them for help with her son.
You could hear them say, hello, this is the police. Can you let us in? He didn't even finish what he was saying. I don't think. There was no hesitation.
Officers Brett Ryan and Travis Jordan did not have time to draw their weapons before the 16-year-old shot them multiple times. Police say the teen and his mother then struggled over the gun before she was shot. He then killed himself. The gunman's 73-year-old father was also in the apartment. He was not injured. Police say neither parent knew there was a gun, and they're trying to figure out how the teen got it.
It is under investigation, so we cannot prepare to release any information, and as well we have to release or investigate the tracings of that firearm and whether or not it's related to any other offenses.
Police say they had gone to the home before for a mental health call, but say the shooter did not have a criminal record. Police are also investigating whether there's any connection to a recent shooting at a nearby pizza place. Meanwhile, the two officers are being remembered. Ryan was a minor hockey referee in his spare time and was about to become a father.
Something I'll remember is just his personality in the dressing room and how he joked around and his passion for the community.
Jordan was originally from Nova Scotia. On social media, he was nicknamed the Snow Angel after cleaning off a woman's car instead of ticketing her. The city continues to mourn. The local police superintendent thanked the public for their support.
Gives us that added strength and that mental fortitude to allow us to know that we will get through this.
That was CBC reporter Julia Wong. Constables Jordan and Ryan are the 6th and 7th Canadian officers to be killed in the line of duty in just the last 6 months. As Cameron McIntosh explains, they've left many with the feeling that the job is getting more dangerous.
A scene as striking as it was tragic. Thousands of uniformed officers turned out for the funeral of Toronto Police Service Constable Andrew Hong last fall. He was ambushed, shot and killed in this Tim Hortons. All of those honoring him, sharing that same bond, a knowledge their next shift could be their last.
We know exactly what they're feeling in Edmonton, and our hearts go out to them.
Inspector Matt Moyer was Hong's commanding officer. He's also an instructor.
It's part of the culture we live and work in. It's part of our extended family, and it resonates right across the country.
Since just last September, 7 Canadian police officers have been killed on the job in violent confrontations. Most of them, like Hong, ambushed.
Well, I think we're facing a situation in Canada where policing is absolutely becoming more dangerous.
Tom Stamatakis is a trainer with the Vancouver Police Department and heads the Canadian Police Association.
This kind of violence is pretty unprecedented. So it's concerning, and we're having conversations about it.
Where's the cop in the ambulance?
Police are calling for greater attention to mental health and addictions crises as violent confrontations increase, including fatal use of force. And experts say training, intelligence, and equipment only go so far.
There is no single policing model that will assure that there are no police casualties or that assaults or attacks on officers are a thing of the past.
For Moyer, it also means preparing the next generation of police.
They all seem to have a heightened sense of risk about entering this profession. But I can tell you that the comments and conversations are all very positive. They're all about mental health and looking after each other.
At the same time, this is all happening as fewer people want to do the job, leaving police forces across the country struggling to recruit. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
After the sudden retirement of the RCMP's first female leader, Ottawa today named the new interim commissioner. The deputy commissioner will be in charge as the search continues for a permanent replacement. Michael Duquesne has held prominent roles in the RCMP over the last 30 years. Brenda Lucky retires today after a controversial tenure. She faced allegations of political interference and was criticized for her response to accusations of sexism and racism within the RCMP. It has paid millions of dollars settling gender-based harassment complaints. Ottawa says it's looking for someone committed to reforming the culture of Canada's national police force. The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin. It accuses him of illegally deporting children from Ukraine, a war crime.
It is forbidden by international law for occupied powers to transfer civilians from the territory they live in to other territories. Children enjoy special protection under the Geneva Convention.
any immediate prosecution is unlikely, although Putin could face arrest if he traveled to an ICC member state. Russia dismisses the move as meaningless, stressing it is not a member. Moscow acknowledges bringing children from Ukraine to Russia, but characterizes it as rescuing orphans and abandoned children from a war zone. Well, anger is building in France today after hundreds were arrested overnight in clashes with police over the government's sudden approval of pension changes. Crowds set off fires on the streets of Paris last night. Police fought back with tear gas. Today, many politicians are calling for protection. The clashes come after the government of Emmanuel Macron yesterday bypassed a parliamentary vote and approved charges to France's public pension. People will now have to wait 2 more years to qualify as the age of eligibility rises from 62 to 64. Opposition parties called the move undemocratic and are threatening a non-confidence vote on Monday. Meanwhile, city workers are still on strike and the streets of Paris are covered in mounds of rotting garbage. Unions say more job action is likely. If you're starting to plan your menu for Easter weekend, look no further. After the break, BC's own stubborn baker will give us some cookie decorating tips and share how her kitchen has helped create a sense of community.
Michelle, what is the message tonight from Ottawa Police?
Well, police say they want everyone to have a good time tonight and this weekend, but to remain respectful. Like you just mentioned, there is a large presence of officers out tonight, especially in neighborhoods where there have been issues before, like Sandy Hill, the Byward Market, and Old Ottawa South. Officers are warning there will be strict enforcement, and they say they're ready to take action if necessary.
We'll be out and about with bylaw as well. So not only will we be taking action against liquor license enforcement and liquor offenses, but also bylaw related offenses. So especially considering noise complaints and excessive noise.
There also will be enhanced enforcement tonight and this weekend with fines of nearly $500 for noise violations.
Okay, and we spoke to residents in Sandy Hill ahead of St. Patrick's Day event. So how are they feeling?
Well, some residents told us they didn't want to see the same type of partying repeated like previous years. Earlier this week, officers went door to door in a few neighborhoods, warning people to celebrate responsibly. And that message seemed to be getting through to at least one party goer.
For Panda, my friends and I were a little bit more like partying because it's such a big event. And we were partying during the morning and we had music blasting, but we had cops told us to quiet down. So obviously we followed their direction. So my friends and I were, if anything, we would go to the market instead of going on the street just because we wanted to be precautious, just because I know some things with Panda happen with the school and everything, so we want to be safe as possible.
And Rochelle, you know, with all that extra enforcement, some may be asking what's the cost for policing and bylaw this St. Patrick's Day? What can you tell us?
Well, right now we don't have those numbers, but last year police say St. Patrick's Day's costs were about $350,000, which covered several days. Natalia.
Okay, thanks so much, Rochelle. Rochelle El Soufi reporting live for us tonight.
Climate change doesn't usually provide solutions for the problems it creates, but in Canada's Arctic, research shows large riverbanks eroding less quickly than expected. And as Linny Lamberink reports, newly flourishing plant species may be the reason.
The Arctic willow can be a nuisance. An elder living in Norman Wells says it regularly needs to be cleared from cabins and trails in the NWT's Sawtoo region.
The moose, they enjoy that. But for a human being, I think it's just getting harder for a person to get from point A to point B.
But the Arctic willow is also getting credit for the power of its roots. This is satellite imagery of Big River on Banks Island in the NWT. Researchers used images like this to see how 10 big rivers in the Arctic have moved over the past 50 years. They were testing a long-held assumption in the scientific community that as the climate warms and permafrost thaws, riverbanks would erode and meander more.
But really, we found exactly the opposite result.
Yelpy chalks it up to plants, like the Arctic willow.
Permafrost might be degrading, but this effect is compounded with the much stronger effect of greening in the Arctic, specifically related to expansion of plants like shrubs, like Arctic willow is very much capable of anchoring channel banks and limiting erosion.
A permafrost expert who wasn't involved in the research says the study is robust.
There's a broad consensus that the tundra, the delta is getting shrubbier.
Coquel and Yelpy share another consensus. Just because big Arctic rivers are migrating more slowly, it doesn't mean that smaller rivers, like the Yellowknife River here behind me, are behaving the same way. Yelpy says there's an opportunity now to test the hypothesis for smaller rivers. Linny Lambrink, CBC News, Yellowknife.
And it's the time of the night to bring back Jules Desjarlais. Jules, we've been quite spoiled this week. We know there's some good news for the weekend. What does the week ahead look like?
Well, it's still a very nice day for tomorrow. After that, it will change. We'll have some more clouds and rain for next week. But for tomorrow, we're going to celebrate today with the temperatures higher almost everywhere. We still have some cloud for tonight and tomorrow morning, but it will clear up very fast in the afternoon. We'll have sun for almost everywhere except for Sandspit. We'll have a new system coming in from that area that would bring some moisture for the northwest of the province, especially at night. Temperatures are quite interesting for tomorrow. We can have maybe 2 to 3 millimeters for Sandspit for the next few hours. In the afternoon, it will clear up. We'll still have a big blue sky for tomorrow. Temperature much more interesting, 13 to 17 for the Fraser Valley. The clouds will come again on the west coast of Vancouver Island in the middle of the day. For Vancouver and Victoria, it's going to be quite a beautiful day. For the Okanagan Valley, it's still going to be a mix of sun and cloud in the morning. Afternoon might be sunny for that region. Mix of sun and cloud also for the south of the Rockies for tomorrow. You can notice that the temperatures are rising very slowly in that area for tomorrow. Up north, it's still a beautiful day for Terrace. Finally, we're reaching temperature close to 10 degrees for that area. It was cold for a long time for the north of the province. Rain will come in very fast in the afternoon for Terrace. And for the next few days, it will change for Sunday, but tomorrow 13 degrees, sunny, beautiful day. We can still go outside for Sunday. We might have some scattered showers at the end of the afternoon. Next week, for the arrival of spring, in the afternoon, we'll have some rain. It's scattered showers actually for Monday and Tuesday. Temperatures are going to go a little bit close to 10 to 12 degrees, but after that, the rest of the week looks pretty great almost everywhere in the south.
Merci beaucoup.
Au revoir.
Well, cookies have always been a sweet way to foster connection. Just ask Jessica Kruger, who says baking classes have given her a strong sense of community. The pastry chef and educator broke her neck as a teenager, but that hasn't stopped her from conquering the kitchen as the stubborn baker. Take a look.
Surprise! You could just dab it on your paper towel before you touch your cookie if you have any doubts.
To me, community is just having a support system and being able to give back.
Yeah, so if everybody wants to open their boxes up and just pull their cookies out, set your box.
I think that I've been so blessed in my life to have an incredible community. They're supporting me, and hopefully I'm, supporting them in some small way as well.
Everybody will have guaranteed one smooth spot on at least one cookie.
It's literally going to be my best.
I teach my classes in a space that's outside of the kitchen I work out of. Yeah, just making sure that it's a fun experience for everybody. So when I initially had my accident, I was 15. You know, I'd gone from being able-bodied, athletic teenage girl to suddenly feeling like I'd lost so many parts of myself and so many of the communities that I belonged to. And the idea of embracing the wheelchair sports community at the time just felt it would be admitting that I was never going to get that piece of myself back. Like I didn't want that to be my identity, I guess, at the time. But in the end, it was once I went to a wheelchair rugby practice and saw how people showed up with their wives, how they drove themselves there, how they were totally independent. Being a part of that community showed me all of the possibilities. Before I started my business, I wanted to be a teacher. I went to school and got a bachelor's degree and thought I was going to teach English one day.
All right, so we're doing 6 cookies today.
I think I like the idea of being able to expand someone's horizons in some way or, you know, pass on a different skill to somebody.
We have our butterfly, which is going to be one of our more complicated designs today.
It's nice to feel like you have some sort of wisdom that you can share with people. Being able to connect with people is my favorite part of it as well.
We can do it, team. All right, we got this.
I feel so grateful for all of the opportunities that I've had. I keep pushing because I know I'm not going to let down that community that has supported me through everything. The biggest challenge for me is just the burden of feeling like I can't let people down, and sometimes that coming at the expense of my own sanity or well-being. Been trying to work on and find the balance of that. I'm a human that's growing and learning and can always be better, so I'm trying to be the best version of myself for me and for the community that I serve.
Down, up, and up. Yeah, I would start a little bit higher here, though. It's sleeping. It's sleeping. That's close. Close enough.
I'm going to put eyelashes on it.
I feel like every time I teach a class, I learn something new because I'll say something one way the first time and then I'll see that that wasn't necessarily clear enough or somebody maybe didn't do it in the way that I was expecting them to.
Oh, a pirate cloud. I like what you did there.
But I also love that everybody brings their own creative touch and their own skill set to the classes as well. So to be able to see how people interpret what I say, I just feel really excited for them and blessed that I was able to teach them a skill that brought them that joy that hopefully they'll be able to continue using again and again. Feeling like I am where I am today because of the community is the reason that I push myself so hard and the reason that I want to be able to connect with them more and more.
Okay, swinging.
My dream for the Stubborn Baker is to move into my own kitchen space, have a storefront and a little cafe, and just be able to expand into that community even more. I'm so grateful for the community that I've built so far, and the idea of being able to expand that reach even further is really exciting to me.
Welcome to the Stubborn Baker's cookie decorating class. Today I'm going to show you how to make this fun butterfly design. So I've got my icings all lined up here already. I'll be working with black, white, and yellow. And I'm going to work with a stiff consistency for my outlining and a flood consistency for filling in. So I'll start with my black outline consistency. You just want to make your icing maybe 2 or 3 hours ahead of when you're going to use it. So now that I have my outline, I'll come in with my black flood. So now I'm coming in with my yellow flood. And I'll start at the bottom here and just drag from the black down to where the wing meets the body of the butterfly. And just leaving a little gap between, do the same movement down towards where the wing meets the body. I'm going to come in with my white icing and just add those little white dot details at the top of the wing here as well. I'm just going to repeat that exact same step on all 4 other wings, and then we'll have our completed butterfly. Pick your favorite color and apply the tip, and you'll have something super special.
Coming up, an award-winning film exploring identity and belonging from a Korean-Canadian experience. More on the filmmaker's creative process after the break.
For some Windsor residents, St. Patrick's Day celebrations would happen later in the evening.
Me and my friends are just going to go out and have some drinks and just have a good time.
We're hoping they have some green brew since it's a brew house. And yeah, having some fun and relaxing before we have to study for our finals.
We're going to have a scuff and a scoff, eat potatoes.
For others, the party was underway earlier. With live music, the Manchester was a spot downtown where a few people had gathered to celebrate. One person was celebrating her birthday.
We celebrate it every year. We celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and I'm just lucky it's my birthday.
But the place to be was Kildare House. The pub was almost full at 11 o'clock this morning. People there were happy to be celebrating, even the pub's owner.
We got some great entertainment, great staff. Let's have a great time today. This is what it's all about.
A tent was set up next door where people could go and celebrate. While it wasn't so busy at 11 a.m., it got much busier a couple hours later. A security guard said the capacity of the tent was around 425 people, which was eventually reached. So much so, a line started to form outside the tent going up Kildare Road. Live music was playing here as well. Everybody was excited to be celebrating St. Patrick's Day for the first time since the pandemic paused massive celebrations. Even one of the younger folks was excited.
I'm very excited.
What are you going to do today?
I don't know yet.
What do you like about St. Patrick's Day?
The leprechaun's here.
Live music will be playing here until 11 p.m. tonight. St. Patrick's Day is back, and the crowd at Kildare House proves it. TJ Deere, CBC News, Windsor.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On April 11th, join CBC Vancouver's Johanna Wagstaff at the Alumni UBC webinar with Dr. Simard and her work on the Mother Tree Project. The focus is to connect First Nations, forestry companies, government, and academics to create resilient forests and stewards of the land. Register at alumni.ubc.ca. And on April 15th, join CBC at the Vancouver Vaisakhi Festival, a Sikh celebration of the coming of a new year.
Today is the theatrical opening of Rice Boy Sleeps, a film directed by BC filmmaker Anthony Shim. The film draws on many of Shim's own experiences as a Korean immigrant in the 1990s.
When I was writing it, my concern was that because it's so specific to the Korean-Canadian experience and so personal to my own experiences, that I worried that maybe I was isolating audiences and that only Korean immigrants in North America would relate to it, but it's proven to not be the case.
The film follows a single mother and her son who struggle to build community in Canada. It won the Best Canadian Film Award at the Toronto International Film Festival. Well, if the St. Paddy's festivities are too low-key, folks can head down to the PNE grounds this weekend for something a little more high-octane. Monster Jam has returned to Vancouver, featuring the debut of a new Jurassic-sized monster truck, Thunderosaurus. Drivers of all genders are taking their mastery behind the wheel to go head-to-head in freestyle skills and racing competitions. And that is our show for Friday. Thank you for spending your night right here with us at CBC Vancouver. A reminder, you can always watch this show and many others on CBC Gem for news anytime. Our website, cbc.ca/BC, is there. And your next local news is at 11 p.m. with your host, Janella Hamilton. Good night.